Woo! Well, that was a hell of a week. Where do we even begin? I got it. Hey, dude. Pick up the phone. I've got huge news. So, I'm over at Best Buy, right? And I spot an ass that I could not believe. Like, an ass like this, I have to fall down some search tunnel in Pornhub to find. And the crack was showing. You know what that does to me. That's my kryptonite. So, I approach, and I thought I'd say something witty, like, oh my god, I'm so hard right now. But instead, what came out of my mouth was, Jesus Christ, I bet you taste delicious. And she laughed. Like, I definitely was prepared to be hit. And that is not what happened. Next thing I know, we're taking a walk through the park, right? And she's telling me stuff. I wasn't paying the most attention. And then she starts like getting a little handsy. She's grabbing on my shoulder, and I'm like, oh shit, is she losing balance? No, it's on, dude. So, she tells me I don't live anywhere near the park. We hop in an Uber. We start a little light making out in the Uber. The driver gets weird about it, so we're pretty much forced to stop. We end up getting to her place. Her roommate is not home. Awesome. And, you know, I'm sitting on the couch. She starts, like, turning stuff on in the kitchen. And then she turns on the television. I'm like, all right, some people like background, you know. But why are you starting food? You think I'm hungry? I'm hungry for you. I'm not hungry for... So, long story short, I start trying to get her naked. And then she starts, like, trying to keep her clothes on, but trying to take my clothes off. And I was like, what is this? Just let me take your clothes off first. Here, you know what? So I take all my clothes off. And then she's still standing there fully clothed. And I'm like, what's happening right now? And she said some shit to me. Everything started to, like, go black. I woke up, and I'm her now. And it's freaking me out because I still sound like me. You need to come over here, check out this ass that I was telling you about. Look at these tits. Just get over here right away, man. It's amazing. I've been fingering myself all morning. So my wife loves Angelina Jolie, and she was very excited for Those Who Wish Me Dead on HBO. And, ooh my damn, that movie was such fresh squeezed ass. And I don't mean that in a nice way. It was awful. I don't know how anybody could watch that. Like, I don't know how people keep choosing stuff like that. Like, she doesn't audition. Who? For those of you who've seen that movie, who thought that was going to be something great? And people made all this big fuss about, like, when HBO Max said we're going to put all of our 21 release schedule out there. And people were like, oh, they're not going to make money. This has been... Like, I hope that Kong vs. Godzilla makes a lot of money. I hope, and I think it did. I'm pretty positive that Mortal Kombat made a lot of money, or is making a lot of money, and it should. But there is some stuff, like The Little Things with Denzel Washington and Rami Malek and Jared Leto. That movie was something that I would have spent money on in theater. I'm pretty confident. Because it looked just my speed. And that as well was an unwiped ass. And when I say that, I mean, like, you know how you just feel disgusting if you haven't wiped well? Hopefully everybody's, like, mind goes back to your childhood. But a gummy ass is gross. And... that's what that Angelina Jolie movie made me feel. It felt like I had to walk a mile in dirty drawers, and there was no chance. Like, all I could do to help the drawers was to stick my own hand in my ass and then throw it. You get what I'm saying. Don't watch that movie. So, how could we not discuss Kevin Samuels? He is quite a dividing topic because, boy, women sure hate him. And I understand why women hate him. I would be surprised if he didn't understand why women don't like him. Just because you're saying the stuff that they definitely don't want to hear. But I love watching his shit. I find it as entertaining as the trashy TLC reality shows that me and my wife watch. It makes her blood boil sometimes listening to the things that he has to say, which I definitely understand. But here's the thing. Like, earlier this week, my son kind of got rejected for the first time. Now, he wasn't really trying to, like, spit game to this little girl because he's 2. But he definitely was trying to say hello to a little girl for a while. And he had never... Normally, he's the one. People used to say hello to him when we would walk down the street. And he would just ignore them. Come in, which is cool. But now he's finally at a place where he's like, oh, I'll try saying hello to people. See how that goes. And yeah, this little girl was having none of it. I don't know if he had just caught her at a bad time. Like, so sorry, dude. Should have been here earlier before the last dude said hello to me. So she ignored him. And, you know, you suck it up, you get over it. Such is life. And he eventually, like, turned around and just moved on. But that was interesting to me because I was like, oh, there you go. Learning rejection already. What are you going to do? I remember the first rejection that actually sticks out to me would be the 6th grade. Because unfortunately, and I wasn't like the best looking thing on the planet, but I had a really good stretch of not getting rejected. Like any girl that I had a crush on, they're like, oh yeah, I actually had a thing for you this whole time too, and I was like, that's what the fuck I'm talking about. And that was awesome. But eventually, there comes a time when somebody that you're attracted to is going to tell you, somebody who had to do that. I know it sucks. I know please hear me this time. I really don't know feelings again tomorrow. But yeah, eventually I got it. Can't always get what you want. Some people are out of your league. And that's something that little me had to learn. And pretty much every little boy has to learn. Like, you don't always get what you want. But you'll never get it if you don't take a shot. So, now my son is there. But women, unless they are so physically, like, unattractive that the men are almost laughing in their faces, they don't really get that. And we are in a time, and I'll come right out and say, I understand why women have the solidarity that they do. Shit, that's like how black people, any marginalized group or oppressed will have or should have that kind of unity. Because if you don't have your back, who does? But the problem is that every woman in the world can tell their best friend that they are beautiful. Go sister and all that shit, good for you. But just because you do it and you've got your friend thinking that they are that shit, that does not mean that a man, assuming that this friend is heterosexual, that does not mean that a man is going to think that. Like, women are pumping themselves up, cool. But one, we don't think like you do. And
like, it's got nothing to do with me being attracted. It's kind of like the trans thing. Everybody in the world could say trans women are beautiful and this and that, and I'll agree. But if a trans woman were in my face and I was single, I'm not interested because I don't like trans women. But I thought, yeah, everybody said, yeah, everybody did. I didn't. And just because everybody thinks that you're fuckable doesn't mean that I have to fuck you. And so I just enjoy listening to his show and hearing these women with these wild backgrounds ask for the best kind of man. And then they don't even have a resume that matches with the job that they want, if that makes sense. Like, I know what I like on paper, or what I'm like on paper. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, especially if we go back in time a few years when my credit was dog shit, and I was making like less than half of what I am now. To my wife's credit, though, she didn't care. And if I'm making $300,000 5 years from now, good on her for having the foresight and sticking with a dude who wasn't making shit and had shit credit. It must have been love. But these women are like, I've got 3 kids, 1 to 2 different men, 5. It's surprising how many, and I'm going to take the black women because he knows he's talking to black women. He speaks in general a lot, but most of the time he specifies he's talking about all of them. Most of the time he's doing that. And a lot of them just grow up knowing they were good. I'm not sure why, so I'm not going to do that. They have that in the same house. I don't know how people raise their girls and black girls and tell them how to approach adulthood. But he did bring up some points a lot that a lot of, I'm going to say a lot of people for this one, just because most people of my generation feel like your 20s are meant to have fun, and your 30s you're supposed to get married, buy a house, all that jazz. And he feels very opposite that. And he feels like, I mean, he's throwing out statistics, and I think it's sad that 1 in 4 black women will get married while the rest just like, you don't necessarily die alone, but if you're not married, that's how everybody sees it. I mean, that's crazy. Maybe we should be getting married younger, because his philosophy is like they get married later because they want to do this career stuff and whatnot. But what's weird about that is the contradiction, because they don't get married early because they want to have a career, make a lot of money. But then a lot of them still say that once they get pregnant, they don't want to pay significant bills. So what was the point of putting in all that work towards your career if you're not really planning to work ever again? It's okay to want a dude to take care of you. It's okay for a man to want a woman to take care of him. It's less likely, but it's weird to me, because it's almost like you did all that just to qualify for this dude. And his whole, Kevin Samuels' whole philosophy is, well, that dude doesn't want you. Like, that doesn't make you more attractive, which I can understand when he says it. But here's what's most important, not how I feel about women or how he feels about women. I like, one, how he talks to men. Because if you've only ever seen the clips where he's talking to women, go look up him talking to men. He is just as hard. And I love it. Like, even though I'm not necessarily the kind of guy that he talks to, I am taking notes, I'm listening, I'm thinking about how I can apply this to myself, how I can better myself, so that I'm better for my wife, and better to her, because it's important that we keep these things in mind. You want to get like stagnant, end up in a sad marriage. Divorce, I hear, is brutal. But yeah, the fact that like maybe not every high value man, as he likes to call it, thinks like he does. But maybe they do. Maybe a lot of them do. Maybe enough of them do that they appreciate him willing to put himself out there like these days, I am really going to have to get a spreadsheet together for all the stories, which would mean I got to go back and listen to every episode, or at least read the descriptions that I've written. But with that said, here's a fun one. So, I am on my way to a comedy show in Newark, New Jersey. It's not that far. I've never been. Every story I've ever heard is bad. My mother, one time, got a rental car, and I think she was traveling for work, but she was in Newark, and she parked it in a parking lot over there, and the whole car just got stripped. And that was her first adult experience in Newark, New Jersey. But it was far more dangerous back then. So we're talking 4 or 5 years ago. I had never been to Newark at that point. I get there, I look around, and it's surprisingly clean because I expected it to just look like the slums. I expected Wild West, bullets flying past me. People had told me that it was safer than it used to be. So, I meet this dude, Jim, and we're both on the show together, getting a ride from our friend Gordon. And so Jim and I are walking and talking. Jim's been to Newark many times, and he's like, oh yeah, it's not really that bad, especially when we're in and I forget the name of the area, but let's call it the Ironsides for fun. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So we get outside, and we're looking around, waiting for a good spot for Gordon to pick us up. So we're looking around, and we decide to cross the street from Newark Penn, and we're standing over by this church. At least it looked like a church. It was either a church or a bank, but it had steps. Those will come into play shortly. So Jim's on the phone with Gordon, and I see a fight happening right where we just were. But a fight is the wrong way to put it. I see a dude getting jumped by what looks to be 20 people. And it's just a sea of dudes, and you can kind of see the one dude in the middle of it all who is standing somehow. And so I'm watching, he's on the phone, because I love fights. And I kind of give him the elbow, hey, fight across the street. So now he's watching, and he's telling Gordon where he can pick us up. So he's like, yeah, we're standing in front of this bank or church. When you get here, you'll know, because there's a huge fight happening across the street. He was like, if you see a guy getting jumped, look across the street from that, and you'll see us at the stairs of this church. And so he's still on the phone with Gordon because I think there's traffic. And the fight starts to break up. So everybody who was over there beating the shit out of that dude starts making their way, because now the cops are coming. They start making their way across the street towards us. And so now we're watching all the fight people fleeing, and I think it's hilarious. Although I don't like the fact that they took the violence from across the street and brought it closer to us with the cops shortly behind them. And of course I'm high. So they're walking, and they're passing us because they're walking past us. And there's these 3 guys. So there's a dude on the left, dude on the right. They're helping the dude in the middle, walk. And the guy in the middle is complaining about, getting scratched. And then the dude on the right says to him, hey, man, I think he got you. And he goes, got me how? And then the dude on his left takes a look at his neck and goes, yeah, dude, he got you. And then the dude just starts, he reaches up, touches his neck. It was kind of like a movie, because that's when he realized he had been stabbed in his neck. And then he starts to collapse to the ground. And when he hit the ground, now he is a foot, maybe 2, in front of Jim and I. Jim is still on the phone, and we're just both shocked watching this kid shake and convulse. And then he starts foaming at the mouth, and we're both like, what the fuck is going on? And that's when, like, the cops came over. They're asking, like, what happened, and they're like, Keisha's boyfriend stabbed him. And they're like, wait a second, stabbed him where? Man, in his neck. Tisha's boyfriend, he stabbed him in his neck. So that's all that we kept hearing. And then finally, like, right after a couple of Tisha's boyfriend, Gordon arrives. And we get in the car, and we're both just like, wow, that was some crazy shit. And we're talking about it the whole drive over to the show. The show happens. It's a great show. A lot of laughter. It was fun. But I remember towards the end of the show, Jim and I are sitting at the table. I think he had just gotten done, but I had gone a little earlier. And, sometimes after a show you kind of like to sit. I guess it's like when people have good sex and then they just kind of lie there in the wet, damp spot. So after a good set, we would like kind of sit there in the damp spot and soak in the good set that we had. And I looked at Jim, and he looked at me, and then we were both just like, you still thinking about that guy who died earlier? Yup. And then we like Googled it later. I could never find any details about what happened. I feel very positive that dude died based on what we saw. I think Jim felt that way too the last time that I spoke to him about it, because it's still something like we'll forever be bonded because of it. We don't have to talk for 5 years, but believe on year 6 when we meet each other. Hey man, you still thinking about it? Yeah man, I looked it up too. There's nothing out there.